Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the AfterBurners podcast. I'm your host, Samuel Oney, and with me is Wes Spearman and special guest, Henry Buxton. Lads, how are you today?
Yeah,
Good,
good,
good.
Sam.
Don't know who to speak
Lovely
first.
salutation. Yeah.
This happened last time. We're just like, oh yeah, is it me? No, oh yeah. I'm good myself. Sun's
Yeah.
shining. I need to get out at some point. So yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah. So do I.
Yeah, beautiful sunny
Hottest day of the
day.
year so far.
Yep. Right. So the rundown of today's episode is the Bahrain review. Yes. On Sunday, the weekend was the first of 23 races in Bahrain, and it was very exciting. So the rundown, we're just going to talk about the race, what we saw, good points, bad points. So first, what I want to start off with is, well, there was so much stuff. Let's talk about the Mazepin spin, the Mazepin spin, the Mazepin spin. Yes, let's talk about the Mazepin spin,
The
lads.
Mazda spin would be easy, wouldn't
Mazda
it?
spin, yeah.
Mazepin spin, yes. So race starts, everyone's off, down into down into the first turn, but Mazepin doesn't make it into the first turn. He goes off the curb, and there we have it. So, lads, let me get your thoughts. As funny as it was not good for Mazepin.
Swift dose of karma, really. Yeah. It just is he good enough? I mean, I know it's the first race and he's getting into F1, but he did it in. Did he do it in qualifying or something as well?
Yes.
He did a bit
He
of an error in
spun 6
qualifying.
times over the weekend and a few times in testing as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah, I
thinking.
mean,
Is he good enough? That's the question.
I don't know, because to be fair to him, whilst he's not a popular driver for reasons off the track, and arguably reasons on the track as well, because his dad's basically bought the team, but he has performed in F2, F3 junior series, but arguably there are more, or there are higher quality drivers currently in Formula 2 now that could quite easily get into F1. But yeah, I mean, his spin at turn 3, he lit the rears up on the curb, and you got no grip then at all on the curb, so fair enough, into the wall. But to be fair, Mick Schumacher did do a similar thing at turn 4? Either on
Turn
the
four.
opening lap or one of the laps after the safety car restart. And no, I don't think anyone said too much about that because we're all too busy laughing at Mazepin
Yeah,
spinning
because
off and crashing.
he has somehow brought it up on himself. I mean,
Yeah.
it is it's almost two opposite ends of the spectrum. You've got a guy who's obviously been accused of certain things, and he's not the best driver either. And obviously he's been bought in the team, and the team's had a bit of controversy. Whereas the other side, you've got a legend's son that everyone's gonna love because that's it. It's Schumacher. It's the
Because of
name.
Michael, yeah.
Yeah, it's the
I mean,
name, isn't it?
even the letters on the timing board, MSC, he specifically
Yeah.
chose that because it's what his dad.
Yeah, Mick
And
Schumacher. I mean,
it's
we all even like Ralph Schumacher, like just even because he was his brother. Like that, it's just two opposite ends of the spectrum. Whereas, yeah, I mean, you got to bring up the question: is it Mazepin and Schumacher? Are they just not good enough yet? Are they just trying to get into F1, or is it the car? Is the car bad? You don't really know.
I would
do you?
say the car is definitely a factor because it certainly seems like this year that Haas have got the worst car on the go. I know we've only had one race and testing, 3 days of testing, but they have been the slowest. And 2 rookie drivers won't really help with that either. Especially, well, I mean, first season of F1, you're not expecting them to set any records, are you? But the car itself is just not good. I don't think they've made any changes at all to last year, despite obviously complying with this year's aero regulations. And that is going to hinder them big time. But then, from a Haas point of view, the money that they save this year by not developing the car at all, they can then sort of put all that money and research and effort into creating a better car for the new regulations next year. I think that is what they're hoping for. And then presumably Mazepin and Schumacher will stay on for next. I mean, Mazepin's not going anywhere, is he? If his dad has a huge say in the team, but I mean, hopefully, a few years down the line, Schumacher can get into a better car, into a better team, and maybe following his dad's footsteps at Ferrari.
Yeah, it's those last three sort of teams, isn't it, that you have to compare it to? It's Williams and Alfa Romeo, the other two, aren't they, that are down there, and yet both of them did really well. I know they're more
They do, yeah,
experienced
agree.
drivers, but Russell did really well. I think Raikkonen and Giovinazzi didn't really have much of a hitch, really. I know Latifi struggles, but I do think that he is not in. Williams isn't really a bad car. It's not as bad as we all think it is compared to like the likes of Haas at the moment. And I do think that Russell in a you can disagree with me here, but I think Russell in a Williams is better than Raikkonen and Giovinazzi both in the Alfa Romeos. I don't. It might be a controversial opinion, but I think Russell is such a good driver that because he's in a Williams, it is a bad car. But I do think he's a brilliant driver. And that's why he pushes through because he's got the driving skills. Even though the car plays a factor, because he is a good driver, he gets that car up into the top and qualifies for Q2 a lot of the time. So, yeah, that's my opinion anyway. Sam, what do you think about the whole Mazepin situation?
I mean, I think it's a bit of both with Mazepin himself and the car in Haas. I don't want to talk about it too much because we have other things to talk about, but I want to take you back to qualifying when was it qualifying or testing where I think Mazepin was driving and he also spun. I don't know which turn it was,
Well,
maybe
he's
4 or
spanning both
5.
testing and qualifying. He spins all the time.
Oh, well then,
But
that's covered
are
then.
you talking about the issue when it was in Q3 when he was back of the pack and then overtook drivers and then span out at turn one, causing the
That's
yellow
it.
flags?
And then he got into the way of was it Vettel and one other driver, causing those
Yeah.
two not to complete their times.
Perez,
Now
was it?
now
No, I don't think it was. It was definitely Vettel, and I think Ocon and
Oh yeah, Ocon went out as well, didn't he?
yeah, might have been
yeah,
Latifi as well in the Williams. But yeah, it was
I don't want to
definitely
talk
three
about it
drivers.
And two of those drivers could have potentially qualified for Q2.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't want to talk about it for too long, but I just thought that wasn't there's nothing in the rule book that says okay, you can't, stop and overtake, but it's more like common courtesy amongst the drivers that you wait and you allow the other drivers to complete their lap time. It just shows that everyone gets a chance at posting their best times for qualifying. And what Mazepin did there it wasn't very gentlemanlike.
I do think I wonder if we look back on people's debuts, whether they made as many mistakes as Mazepin did over the weekend. I bet there's some drivers who have had a brilliant debut, and a brilliant first sort of like couple of races, whereas I bet there are some of the drivers that are probably currently on the track that their debut probably wasn't the best either. And you just gotta think, well, let's give them a few races that they're obviously just starting. And yeah, we have to sort of be kind with it. I know that he's got the reputation, but we do have to sort of step back and go, look, this is his first race. Let's just wait to see what happens in the future. And if it continues, then obviously he'll continue to get that stick. And yeah, we just have to go from there, really.
I saw somewhere that his race was over faster than Bottas's pit stop. Well, they failed to get the front rear tire off. I think Bottas's pit stop took what 30, 40 seconds, and Mazepin was out after about 20 seconds, something like that.
Yeah, it was static for a whole. Yeah, Bottas was static for a whole 11 seconds.
Right. So yeah, that was that. Now into the race. Well, there's so much to start before coming into the race when the lights go out. Now, I'm not sure if you noticed, but Henry, you might have, in the formation lap, Red Bull's Sergio Perez, his car came to a stop before coming back to the starting grid. The engine completely stopped, car stopped. Now, and resulting that he had to start from the pits.
It's just unlucky,
So
really, isn't it? it was just a bit. It was just really unlucky for him, I think. And is it? There was a. But my thoughts on this is are Red Bull giving their second driver enough attention after Max Verstappen? Because they're both. It's a brilliant car. I mean, Mercedes. I know they give sort of Hamilton is kind of number one, but they do give Bottas and Hamilton sort of kind of equal attention. Whereas that apparently, I don't know if this was the case, but Red Bull and AlphaTauri work quite closely together, obviously because they're a similar company, both British teams. Apparently, Perez, something to do with Perez's engine or sort of power, or some there was something in Perez's car that they changed to Gasly's car just before the race because they said that it was faulty, and so for some reason they want Gasly to do better than Perez, which is really strange. I think I don't think that should be a thing to cross over teams. I know they work closely together, and there are I don't know of any other examples on the grid at the moment, but I don't think crossing teams. It's almost like you've got four cars on the grid to try and win like constructors and points and stuff. So yeah, I do think that is a bit odd. That really is odd. So yeah, I think it's just unfortunate from Perez. I mean, that seat's cursed. Everyone was saying it was cursed, but yeah, it's just a bit of an odd situation, and I don't think it's really fair on Checo.
We'll come back. I actually want to come back to Sergio Perez later, later during this episode. But we must like the high point we must talk about now is the battle between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen in that race. I mean, how good was that race from start to finish? Despite Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes going off the track, yes, off the track limits 29 times on turn 4.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Lads,
It's ridiculous. I mean, in qualifying, they were having lap times deleted because they were exceeding track limits at turn 4. And I think Bottas was the main one in that. So he went off 8 times in qualifying or something.
I can
Or
name
laps,
at least
at
two
least 8.
drivers. Yeah.
I mean, loads of people were doing it. And then I believe that the stewards said we won't be monitoring track limits at turn 4 in terms of lap times. So if a driver wasn't racing anyone, they could go off the track. But obviously, when it came to Verstappen overtaking Hamilton, you can't overtake off track. Everyone knows that. So that's more than fair enough. They had to give that position back. But the issue is Hamilton left the track 29 times, more than half the race. He exceeded the track limits at turn 4. That is unacceptable. And to be not penalised for it is even more unacceptable from the stewards. Because if you were to do that on the F1 game, for example, you get 2 warnings and then a 5-second penalty. I mean, it's just a game, but it's based on Formula One and the rules that are applied in Formula One. And I know I've said it before, but it is ridiculous. I can't really think of any other word to describe it. It's just unacceptable that he was allowed to do that and that the track limits essentially changed over the course of 2 days. In qualifying, it wasn't allowed. In the actual race, it was allowed. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Do you think Max Verstappen, both of you, do you think Max Verstappen would have benefited from taking it had he won the race if Lewis Hamilton was investigated by the stewards for going off track 29 times at turn 4?
Well,
Yeah.
if the track limits had been enforced, then Hamilton wouldn't have done it in the first place. So then it would have been a more level playing field, and I think that possibly could have led to Verstappen winning the race because it is fractions of seconds that going off at turn 4 does give a driver. But over the course of 56 laps, originally 57 laps, but of course 1 lap was taken off for the extra formation lap, it adds up. And that creates tenths of a second, maybe into a second. Who knows? And if all the drivers had to adhere to the track limits, which they should be doing, it sounds obvious that of course they should be keeping to the track limits. Okay, I don't know. It's just he should have been penalised for doing it, and he wasn't. And that's
my thoughts on this is right. So the cars are fast, right? Maybe that turn in Bahrain just is unsafe if Hamilton doesn't take that line. And my thoughts is maybe the students have looked over that over the course of the weekend and gone, look, he's going to go out there because the car's just too fast. Of the set, I know there's you say, oh, some of the cars are as fast. I think it's just the way that worked at the moment is that he could go off track limits. Plus, he wasn't really battling anyone during those times to get an advantage. It's only because I think that we're talking about it is because that Max Verstappen went out of track limits to overtake Hamilton and then have to give the place back. But at that moment, he is racing, so that therefore he has to stay in track limits. I just wonder whether taking that line during the race when he's not battling anyone, is he gaining time or is he losing time? That's the question you have to ask. If he's shaving off a few millis, well, I'll say a few milliseconds. I know margins are quite small in F1, but if he is shaving off a few milliseconds, that is when you have to step in and go, look, you can't be doing this anymore. Take a different racing line because you're obviously going out of track limits and benefiting from that. It's like taking a shortcut, isn't it? For like a hairpin, you instead of going around the hairpin, you just cut the corner a little bit. So yeah, I think that you have to put into decision. He's not racing anyone. The car's a bit fast, so maybe that corner is a bit too fast at Bahrain, and they need to change it, or they need to make sure that I don't know the track limits are right. So yeah, I don't know what it is with that one. Is the car too fast? He wasn't racing anyone, so I think it's perfectly fine as long as he's not shaving off some seconds and seconds and seconds by doing it. And the only reason we're talking about it is because the track limits are what decided the final outcome, I think. So, yeah, that's my
Just
thoughts
to
on it.
come back off that, I mean, Hamilton wasn't the only driver to do it. I think Mercedes did go over the radio to Hamilton, say quite late in the race, and say, "Look, the stewards are looking at turn 4." And then Hamilton got back over the radio saying, "Well, I thought there weren't any track limits at turn 4." But I mean, you can say the car's too fast, but that is the track. The track limits are there. You got to stay on the asphalt. All the other drivers were doing it. I didn't see. I mean, I might not have been watching properly, but I didn't see any other driver go off at turn 4, especially not 29 times. And I think I can't remember if Max brought it up on the radio. I can't really remember, but Hamilton was taking that line because it would gain him an advantage. That is the point of racing, to take the fastest line. And if that's the fastest line through the corner and it means going off track, then that's going to be the quickest way around. But the track limits are there for a reason. Those white lines on the outside of the track and the curbs as well. Curbs are part of the track limits. Hamilton was a whole car's width off at one point. You could have fit another car in between him and the track, which is just utterly stupid and completely wrong, in my opinion, that he should be allowed to do that. The track limits are there for a reason and they need to be enforced. It should be black or white. It shouldn't be, oh yeah, we'll penalise you in qualifying, we'll invalidate your lap times in qualifying. But even if you're not racing anyone in the actual race, yeah, fine, whatever, do what you want. It's just wrong. The track limits are there for a reason and they should be adhered to, full stop.
Max Verstappen must be so disappointed in the outcome of how that race finished. As good as the battle was between those two, and we're going to see more to come during the rest of the season, I have no doubt. With 14 laps to go, on that corner to go off track, and then to give back the position thinking, oh, I'm going to get a penalty, and then to let Hamilton back in front to take that first position again originally, and he goes on to win the race. If I was Verstappen, I'll be thinking, oh, did I do the right? Well, of course I did the right thing by giving back his position, but I wanted this as well. How disappointed must he have been? Honestly,
Yeah,
he
I
should have
mean,
won the race.
marginal, wasn't it, in the end? It was 0.7 seconds.
0.7,
That's
yeah.
like that is in today's racing. That is close. It's really close. Normally, you've got a few, multiple seconds between first and second, or any drivers for that matter. So Yeah, it was so close, and you just think, could he have taken that time penalty and then just tried to like push ahead of Hamilton? 5-second time penalty, but could he have got 5 seconds ahead of Hamilton if he just kept on racing?
Yeah, I think he did
That's the
say
question.
over the radio after after the finish line that he thinks that he could have got ahead for that penalty to not matter. He could have got 5 seconds ahead of Hamilton, but obviously Red Bull got the message from race control saying, well, he has to give that position back because he overtook him off track. But it is, I think he said he'd rather win and then get the penalty rather than be second and give the place back. Which I understand that, but I don't know.
But then again, it could have been. It could have been a 10-second penalty for ignoring orders. You don't know, do you? It could have, and it could have even been a stop-go penalty where he had to go into the pit. It could have been completely something that would just make him not even finish second. So the whole point of giving the place back is he's then in second, and he can't really do much worse than that because the fact that Bottas was so far behind. In racing terms, I mean, it wasn't that far behind, but in racing terms, he was quite far behind. So, yeah, I mean, it's an issue, isn't it, that we've brought up, and we will continue to talk about it throughout the rest of the season. Is it going to be defying with so many races in the season? I think it's going to be less so, but I think that it will be a bit of a gut punch for Max Verstappen because he should and could have really won that race.
Now, every track is different. What I mean by that is every track is different in how it's laid out, so it's going to suit different cars. Now, if you're Max Verstappen, you're going to look at this and be thinking, I should have had this race in Bahrain, but then I have got 22 races to stamp my mark against Lewis Hamilton, and I could win any of these 22 races. So I don't think Max Verstappen should be too like downhearted on this. Yes, he had all the hype of the two drivers from practice to qualifying into the race, but he's got 22 races to make up for this. So it's down to him really.
And he will win a race this season. I can
Definitely.
guarantee it.
Yeah, definitely.
He'll win not one, he'll win multiple. I reckon he'll win about at current rate, I think he'll win about 5 or 6. I think he'll win a good percentage of them. I think Hamilton will win obviously the most because he's probably going to win the championship again. And sometimes he does have, well, Verstappen does have off days.
Sam shaking his head to that.
Doesn't seem to have off days. No, Hamilton doesn't seem to have off days, whereas Verstappen does, and Verstappen is quite unlucky in that Red Bull, and Red Bull has issues every now and then. Whereas Mercedes is quite reliable, and they're quite lucky at the same time. So depending on how the season goes, I think Max will win. I think Max will win a good. Do you know what? I'll go for 5 races. I think he'll win. I think Bottas might win a couple. And then obviously Hamilton will win most of them. And then obviously, there's some races that will just be completely unpredictable. And Hamilton, Verstappen and Bottas will all go out. And the race is wide open. Perez has a puncture. Vettel goes spinning out. You just don't know you don't know who's going to win. So, yeah, there will be a couple of races. But I do hope that another British driver does win a race this season. Or someone like Ricciardo. That'd be good.
Now, I said I would come back on this, and so I'm coming back on this. How good was Sergio Perez in that Bahrain race? From the minute he had that engine problem to start in the pits, not 20th, but in the pit lanes, and then to finish, I think he finished in a top 10, but I think he finished, sorry?
5th, yeah.
P5.
Under Lando Norris. Yeah.
How good was he? He was amazing. I literally went crazy on Twitter. I was impressed.
I don't think there are, but that to have that passion and grit from last position. I mean, he's sort of done it before, hasn't he? Where he's come from last and pushed, and he's actually won the race in
Sakir.
Was it Sakir?
Yeah, Sakir. Yeah. He likes going from last to first with Perez.
Yeah, he does. He does. To be fair, and then
he does.
I know there's other drivers that obviously have hunger and drive, but Perez has just proven that on the grid, he has the most passion and the most drive to push that forward. He could. I know there's some drivers like Vettel, who if they sort of drop back, they sort of give up. I know that he did that in the Ferrari last season. Whereas if he drops back, he just goes, "Oh well, I'm back here. I'm not going to be doing much." And then he's racing with the Alfa Romeos. But yeah, I think that to have that drive and like is in last place and not just gone, "Oh, I'm in last. I won't finish in the points. I'll finish back and I'll just do my pits. I'll just go around the track and have a Sunday drive." But he has gone, "No, I'm not having this. I've had an issue. I'm going to push up and get into the top points." And he was close. He was actually really close to fourth even. I mean, we were trying to. I remember we were predicting fourth place, and we all said it was going to be Perez because he was in the Red Bull and he was a good driver. But obviously he had that issue, so we all were quite kind of close in that way. But yeah, I think on the track he is showing at the moment the most drive and passion of any other driver on that track.
Who did get driver of the day for that Sunday race? Does anyone know?
Perez won.
It was
yeah.
Perez.
I voted for him as well.
Same here.
Yep, same.
Same here. Yeah, that was great. I want to highlight just briefly. I want to highlight how impressed Lando Norris was. Honorary shout out to Lando Norris.
He was brilliant.
Yeah.
Consistency.
Yeah. It was quite quiet. He didn't really have a lot to do during the race, but he just delivered. Went up 3 places? Was it from 7th to 4th?
He stayed there.
Just a solid drive for both McLarens.
Really. It was quite quiet, really, because obviously we're talking about the issues at the back and stuff, and Mazepin, and then obviously Perez coming up, and all the battles at the front. Obviously, the battle at the front was one of the main points. He sort of was quite quiet around the race. I almost forgot he was on the racetrack until he came steaming over the line in fourth. I was like, oh, that's a bloody good race for Norris. That is. He just didn't focus on him at all. It's kind of odd, really. But yeah, I think Norris is one of the most. He struggled last season, but I think he is consistent and he is good, and it just begs the question of like obviously Ricciardo and Norris are in the same car. Who's a better driver? Is Norris a better driver than Ricciardo? Who knows?
It's very close.
I think he could be
very close.
Personally, I think Ricciardo just edges out Norris, but what a good drive, a solid drive from both of them on Sunday. Both McLarens. Is it 4th and 7th? 4th and 6th? Either way, both cars solid points.
6 or 7th, yeah.
Both cars solid points in the first race of the season. It's sort of similar with Ferrari as well. I think Leclerc was 6th and Sainz 8th, I believe. So yeah, a decent start for Ferrari as well.
And I know that you're a fan of McLaren, and they are that team who should be pushing for that third place, second place team with Red Bull, and maybe I know Alpine struggled, but with Aston Martin and with Alpine and that they should be pushing for that third place team in the constructors. So yeah, they should. I'm not surprised that they're so high where they are, and the Norris and Ricciardo did well because they're both brilliant drivers.
I think one thing. Sorry, Sanchez. Just I know we're running out of time, but I think the top 2, the sort of best of the rest, if you like, there's still a huge gap. I think we saw the McLarens were about 30 seconds behind the top 2 at the end of the race. So there is still quite a big gap, but onwards and upwards.
1 down, 22 to go. So I think we have a quiz amongst us. Quiz, where?
Yes, we do. Quick quiz.
You brought that up on me. I wasn't prepared for this. What are you interrogating me with today?
So,
what is it?
In the race on Sunday, Yuki Tsunoda, a driver that we haven't really talked about so far, what a brilliant drive, but also scored his first points in his first race in F1. And that got me thinking, wow, he's quite young. He's the first driver to race in F1 born in this millennium. Who are the youngest drivers to have scored points in Formula One? Yuki Tsunoda is the 15th youngest. Can you name the other 14? I think you'll get most of them. There are a few.
The youngest they were when they scored points.
How old? Yeah, the 14 youngest point scorers. So how old? this is how old they were when they scored their first point.
And Sonoda was fifth. It was
Sonoda was
15th
15th.
youngest.
Sonoda was 15th at 20 years, 10 months, and 16 days.
Oh,
Okay. Sam, do you want to alternate or?
Yeah, I
Do you want to go
guess.
first? Do you want to go first?
Sebastian Buemi.
Yes,
That's a-
ninth
that's a-
place.
that-
He
I wasn't
long
expecting
shot,
you to
innit?
start with that one, Sam.
yeah, he the name is familiar. He raced for Red Bull.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
4 points in Australia 2009.
I think the obvious one, Lewis Hamilton.
No.
Damn.
What? How
Hamilton
old was
is
he
not
when he got his
in the
first
top
points?
14.
How old was he? He must have
He
been
was
quite old
early
then.
20s, I think. But you're
Mm.
missing.
Oh, wow.
Well, first is very obvious.
Vettel.
No, but he is there somewhere.
I'm trying to think. He was quite young when they started F1.
Vettel is
Schumacher?
fifth youngest.
Schumacher.
Michael
Michael
Schumacher.
Schumacher.
No.
I'm struggling with this one. It must have been.
One glaringly obvious driver who we've talked about a lot this episode.
Norris.
No,
Oh.
but he is third.
How old's Russell? Russell?
No, George Russell.
No.
Oh, shit. So it's not Hamilton.
No,
Not Hamilton. No, another top driver.
Perez. Sergio Perez. No, he's
No,
not there, is he?
Sergio.
Max
I'm out of this.
Verstappen's on that list, isn't he?
Verstappen. There you go. First place. 17 years,
Verstappen?
5 months, 29 days.
Right, I'm gonna
Good.
go. I'm gonna go Pierre Gasly,
Gasly is not on the list.
and then maybe Dylan Hartley.
Not on the list.
Oh, I know one.
I'm awful at this.
I don't know
Go on,
one,
Sam.
but Juan May Alaguerri.
Jamie Alguersuari.
That's it, yeah.
No, that was not the same thing. That was not the same name at all.
I mean, I trouble to spell his surname, but yeah, he's there. He's sixth place, 20 years and 12 days.
How many is up? How many left to go?
I'm awful with
You
ages
have
of
1,
drivers.
2, 3, 4, 5,
How old?
6,
How old?
7, 8,
How old was?
9
How old
drivers
was,
left to go.
How old was Kimi when he started? Was he
Kimi
quite old when he
Räikkönen isn't there.
started?
He's not there.
Oh.
Shall I
Is
give you
this like
some?
of all
Shall I
time?
give you
Is
some
this like of all
clues?
time as well?
Of all time, yeah. Shall I give you some
Yeah,
clues?
give us some clues.
Yes, please.
Canadian driver, currently on the grid.
Stroll.
Stroll.
Yep.
This helps.
That helps.
Russian driver, demoted.
Kvyat.
Yeah. And then you got Vettel and Alguersuari.
Is
British
Jean-Eric
driver.
Vergne on there?
Jean-Eric Vergne is not.
No.
But British driver, one-time world champion.
Button.
Jenson
Button.
Button.
I was
Brazil in
going to say Button
2000.
before as well. I was going to say it, but I thought he was quite old when he started.
I'll leave the least obvious ones till last. But,
Okay.
in 10th place is French driver. Again, currently on the grid.
I said Jean-Eric Vergne.
Yeah.
It's not. French. Is he on the grid now?
He's currently on the grid.
Gasly.
No, not Gasly.
I said Gasly.
The other French
Leclerc?
driver on the grid. No, Leclerc is there. He's
He's Monegasque.
Monegasque.
It's
driver,
Monegasque. It's
He
not
is there.
French.
Yeah, but he's not. That wasn't the answer.
Oh.
Leclerc is still on there. Leclerc is
Who's
11
the French driver on the grid?
What other
I'm
French
lost.
driver are you talking about?
in a French car.
Alonso. He's
Alonso's
Spanish.
Spanish.
No. Who's the other driver with him? Who's driving with Alonso?
Ocon.
There you go.
How do we forget? It's because he was so like he wasn't in the race last week.
Ocon.
Well, on Sunday. That's ridiculous. Ocon. How old was Ocon?
Ocon was
How old was
years,
Ocon?
6 months and 9 days.
How old
Must
is he
be quite
now?
young.
24?
Yeah,
I think
about 24.
or 24.
23,
Oh,
24.
yeah. Right. Did you say Spanish driver?
Spanish driver, yeah. Again,
not
currently
Alonso,
on the
is it?
grid. No, not
Alonso
Alonso.
then? No.
Is he on the grid?
On the grid. Spanish driver.
Go on, Henry.
You sure he's Spanish?
I'm certain he's Spanish. He had a
Carlos.
Carlos Sainz,
Science then, yeah.
20 years, 6 days, 6 months. German driver, one-time world champion.
Who?
German, one-time world champion.
Vettel's won it more.
Had a dad who won the world championship as well.
Rosberg.
Oh my God, Rosberg.
Yeah, Nico Rosberg. And then we can try and get these other two, although we are running out of time. Mexican driver scored points
Ricardo
in Belgium.
Rodriguez.
Yes. Have you been doing research?
I'll admit that one. I did some research on that one. 1962.
Yeah.
And cheating. I should win by default, even though I've got like one.
And then 14th, scored points in the Netherlands 1964. A New Zealand driver. It's not Bruce McLaren. He was 20 years, 10 months, and 4 days. I'd be very surprised if you get either of this.
Mark Webber, but I know he's Australian, so it's not
Mark Webber.
No. Well, scored points in 1964. He's not that old. Chris Heyman.
No idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't have got him either.
No. That was awful for
and
me.
then
I'm good at nationalities as well.
And he got Yuki Tsunoda in 15th round off.
Cool. That didn't go well for me, but I win because Sam cheated.
It was one time.
Cheaters never prosper. Hamilton. Right.
Anyway.
No, I'm happy with the race result. I don't know about you. I'm quite happy.
I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Another thing, just before we round off, we made our predictions.
No one got it right.
We
did it the other way around. We all said Hamilton would get pole and Verstappen would win, or something, didn't we?
Well,
there was only 1 point scored out of a possible 15, and that went to me for getting Hamilton would win the race.
Oh, fair.
Every other prediction was wrong.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of episode 5 of the AfterBurners podcast. This was the Bahrain review. I'm your host, Samuel Oni. And this is a goodbye from me. A goodbye from Wes.
Bye.
That was the most awful thing.
And it's a goodbye from Henry Buxton, our guest.
I'll see you soon, guys. See ya.
See you
soon. Lads, see us again for the Italian GP